Here we will see uses of assemblies in .NET Framework. The .NET Framework uses assemblies as the fundamental unit of several purposes. For example, security, type identity, reference scope, versioning and deployment. First we will see security. An assembly is the unit at which security permissions are requested and granted. The .NET Framework provides two mechanisms for assembly security: strong names and signed code. You can also manage the security by specifying the level of trust for code from a particular site or zone. Signing an assembly with a strong name adds public key encryption to the assembly, which ensures name uniqueness and prevents substituting another assembly with the same name for the assembly that you have provided. The signCode.exe tool embeds a digital certificate in the assembly, which allows users of the assembly to verify the identity of the assembly's developer by using a public or private trust hierarchy. You can choose to use either strong name, signCode.exe or both. The common language runtime also uses internal hashing information in conjunction with the strong names and signed code to verify that the assembly being loaded has not been altered after it was built. Then type identity. The identity of a type depends on the assembly where that type is defined. That is, if you define a type named datastore in one assembly and a type named datastore in another assembly, the .NET Framework can tell them because they are in two different assemblies. You can't define two different types with the same name in the same assembly. Then reference scope. In general, the assembly is the location of reference information. Each assembly contains information on references in two directions. The assembly contains metadata that specifies the types and resources within the assembly that are exposed to code outside of the assembly. For example, a particular assembly could expose a public type named customer with a public property named account balance. The assembly contains metadata which specifies the other assemblies on which it depends. For example, a particular assembly might specify that it depends on system.windows.forms.dll assembly. Then versioning. Each assembly has a 128-bit version number that is presented as a set of 4 decimal pieces: major, minor, build and revision. For example, an assembly might have the version number 3.5.0.126. By default, an assembly will only use types from the exact same assembly that was built and tested with. That is, if you have an assembly that uses a type from version 1.0.0.2 of another assembly, it will not use the same type from the version with 1.0.0.4 of the other assembly. This use of both name and version to identity reference assemblies helps to avoid DLL hell problem of upgrades to one application breaking other application. Then deployment. Assemblies are the natural unit of deployment. The Windows Installer Service 2.0 can install individual assemblies as part of a larger setup program. You can also deploy assemblies in other ways, which includes by a simple copy to target system or via code downloaded from a website. When you start an application, it loads other assemblies as a unit as a types and resources from those assemblies are needed.